everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thanks for joining us today. Happy Tuesday to you all. Today we've got another success story, teacher to transition journey to talk about, and our guest is Stephanie Diggins. And let's see, Stephanie has actually been a guest with TLDC in the past. Interestingly enough, I think it was late last year when you had emailed me. And you were looking for, it was the freelance event, right? You wanted to learn more about freelancing, and you're like, what if you did an event about that? And I'm like, okay, let's give it a try. It took me a few months to kind of get it together, right? I know it was in the winter break and we had a couple other things planned, but then we eventually pulled it together. So that was pretty savvy of you to make that request. And we actually got a freelancing event out of it. I should actually paste that link in the chat at some point just so that people can have access to it. Yeah. But now, we're going to be talking about you as you were a teacher for a number of years. Yep. And transitioned to instructional designer. And so let's discuss that. How did you get started in education to begin with?
So I actually have a background in theater and theater production. And so after college, I graduated in 2004, which is dating myself a little bit, but graduated college in 2004. And afterwards, I tried to work in the theater industry and still love theater, still do stuff with theater. But I eventually decided I want to teach. I want to teach theater because I love theater. And so went back to school, got my master's degree in education, secondary education in Ohio, and immediately, I started my master's degree and I started working in schools this at the same time. So I was working as a paraprofessional, and then I went into it was a long-term sub teaching a drama class, and then finally graduated. I kind of did a little bit backwards. I ended up teaching before I did my student teaching, so it was a little bit of a hot mess because my classroom management was non-existent. So so it was a steep learning curve, but when I got into student teaching, I knew not what to do. So it made the student teaching experience a little bit easier. And then 2011, I graduated and started looking for a full-time teaching job and ended up in New York City and taught there for a couple of years, and then made my way down to Delaware, which is where I'm originally from, and taught there for about 5.5 years. So I have about 9 years of teaching experience under my belt.
Wow. Were you good? Were you thinking about getting into theater when you went to New York?
I did. No, I didn't. That's part of the reason I wanted to move to New York. Because in college I went to New York City, see a Broadway show. I actually saw Rent on Broadway. It was amazing. It's one of my favorite musicals. And always wanted to live in the city, and eventually got in there and loved it. But teaching was draining. Yeah. Even in New York. And then eventually in Delaware, because I did leave for about 6 months. I left my teaching job in New York, traveled for a little bit because I'm I need a break. And then ended up back in education when I got back to Delaware.
Right. Okay. It's amazing to me how many theater people are actually in instructional design. We talk about it pretty regularly here, just the interviews that I've done. It's background in theater and now instructional designer. So when did you decide to shift to instructional design?
I started kind of doing it as a side gig just to earn a little extra money last year. Yeah, last summer. I ended up getting 2 freelance jobs, and so that really started the instructional design interest, I'd say.
So can you go into that a little bit? I'm just curious, like, how did you find an instructional design job? I mean, or freelance work to begin with? Is it something you just answered an ad on the internet, or how did that go?
One of them was, yeah. So the first kind of freelance job that I got, and this was a long-term client, like I ended up having him for like working with him for almost a year. But I found him on Upwork.
Okay.
And I've used Upwork before. You know, in the past, I've done some like freelance writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got back on Upwork and was like kind of looking into stuff. And so the client hired me as a PowerPoint person, like a PowerPoint guru or something like that. He pretty much just wanted me to soup up his PowerPoints. And because the PowerPoints were a training that he was selling to a company. And so I was subcontracted. But the PowerPoints weren't doing what he wanted them to be able to do. Because PowerPoint is a presentation software. It's not a authoring tool.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So at that time I was, you know, doing the free trial with Storyline, starting to like figure that out. Cause that's one of the big upskilling, when you're transitioning is the software.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the software we do not use in the classroom. So I showed him a course that I had created on Storyline and was like, look, this is everything that this software can do. And that's everything that you want it to be able to do. So I was able to convince him, and he went to the company and they were like, oh yeah, we have an LMS. And so we can totally like upload this to our LMS system. And so that's what I ended up convincing him to let me develop the course in Storyline instead of just PowerPoint.
Wow.
So essentially I was content developing. I was taking his PowerPoints and uploading them into Storyline, because you can upload PowerPoints directly into Storyline. But then I was adding like, you know, we were adding videos, we were adding scenarios, we were adding knowledge checks. So that was like my first.
Yeah, no, and that's great that you actually had a project that you needed to figure out. Like that's a big deal.
I was able to learn Storyline as I was working.
Right.
So if I was like, oh, I want to be able to do this, I have no idea how to do that. Then I just, you know, you Google it, you go to eLearning Heroes, and they have like all of the directions on how to do certain things. And so it was nice to be able to learn, kind of learn on the job on how to use Storyline.
Were you using just the trial version the whole time, or?
No, he ended up buying it.
Okay.
Like it was, this is probably like a little bad, but so I had the trial version, then he got the trial version, and then he ended up buying it. So we had a couple of months that we got to use Storyline for free because we both did the trials.
Right. Right.
And then, and then he purchased it.
Nice. Okay. So started your instructional design career just doing. Oh, you know, we should actually mention with Upwork. Explain a little bit about what Upwork is. I've used Upwork in the past for hiring like web devs and stuff. But why don't you go ahead and tell folks what Upwork is?
Yeah, absolutely. Upwork is just it's a freelancing job site. So you can create a profile on it. You can show some of the work that you've done. So you can add like a little bit of a portfolio into your own profile. And they do take a cut of what you earn. But it's okay.
Yeah. And it's a great way to kind of get experience, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there are tons of jobs available for instructional designers on Upwork. Upwork is not the only place to get a to search for, freelance jobs. I'm also a part of LearnNexus. I'm on LearnNexus. I haven't really gotten any jobs through them yet because I haven't actively really pursued. But that's another great website for looking for freelance jobs.
Right. And I know that ID Lance that sponsors a lot of or lately TLDC stuff. I don't have any direct experience with them, but I've heard really, really good things about them. And
and Parker Grant's great.
Yeah, they seem.
Yeah, I pretty much brought him to you.
Yeah, did you?
The freelance, yeah.
Okay.
When we were talking about speakers for the freelance event, I was like, Parker Grant, because I had gotten his name from Sarah Stevick, who has been another huge help with me transitioning from teaching to instructional design,
right?
Because she heads up TPLD, Teaching a Path to Learning and Development, and she's just amazing. Love her. And she's a friend now. But she has so many great resources for teachers that want to transition. And the TPLD community is super, super supportive.
Great. No, she's on the program next week speaking. I can't remember what day it is, but for our audience out there, let me type this in if anybody wants to look at the event next week, which is free. You can check it out there. All right, let me ask you this next question. What do you feel was the thing that helped you the most transfer from being a teacher to an instructional designer? Any skills in particular?
Definitely tech skills, making sure that you have those down. When I was really learning about instructional design, attending conferences, networking, all of that really helped. There are some amazing instructional design books out there, and also learning a little bit about graphic design, because you need to be able to make your course look pretty, and that takes some graphic design skills. And then also really getting into the AV portion of it, audio video. So if you're doing a talking head video or an animated video, and then also being able to add voiceover and make sure it sounds good, that you don't have static or background noise or anything like that. So
right. So let me get some specifics. What what events did you go to sort of get into it, or were there just a whole bunch that you just started signing up for and just diving into it?
There was kind of a whole bunch that I started signing up for and just diving right in. All the TLDC events.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Because you have amazing events. You pick and you curate incredible speakers in the field. And a lot of speakers that you have are speakers that I follow on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
People that I follow on LinkedIn, because they're so they're kind of well known in the industry, and they're doing amazing things. And I'm not saying they're doing amazing things job wise, because of course they are, but they're doing amazing things for the community, for the LD community, and really just helping people out, giving them the information that they need to be able to be successful in this field.
Right. Yeah, I think it seems like that's pretty much the thing that I'm trying to do, is because I've been in this space for so long, and there are definitely people that I know that have been out there forever that are that helped kind of define e-learning and instructional design over the last 20 years. I rarely bring those folks into TLDC. It's more kind of the folks that are really active in sharing and wanting to, that are actively part of the community, that I'm kind of more focused on. But I'm I'm certainly, I know, yeah, I want to bring some of the other like big time experts at some point. I'll get a few of those into TLDC. How about with the graphic design thing? Like where did you go for stuff like that?
For graphic design, well, there's a great book, the non-designer's design book or handbook or something like that. I think that's the name of it. So I have that, and that's helped a lot. But then also, I have a friend of mine from high school it's pretty much kind of what he does is graphic design. So I'd always have him like my website and everything that I've created. Like I've had him look at it and give me feedback and kind of like remind me, like really kind of point out like design principles that I need to keep constantly like kind of in my head. So yeah, and like I've been able to, with one client that I have, I've been able to really kind of practice my graphic design because initially, and they're a long-term client, which is great. But initially they hired me to design job aids. Job aids. So that was some graphic design there.
Yeah. No, and it sounds like one of the things that I'm consistently hearing in these particular episodes, the success stories are the instructional designers that I feel like are really seeing some success are the ones that are curious, right? And that's the thing like that really struck me at first when you and I talked was that you had an uncle, I think it was, that was helping you with the business side of freelancing. And you were like, I need to get answers. I need to find answers. You were really like, just like wanting to, to explore and get this stuff sorted out. And I think that's an important piece of the whole thing is that if you're shifting from one career to the other, you have to be interested in really like just chasing some of this stuff down.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, especially with freelance, you do have to be pretty business savvy because you have like, the uncle that you mentioned, he's a CPA. So all of like the tax stuff that I need to do that I didn't have to ever do because, the schools I worked with automatically took taxes out. I have to figure out, okay, you pay your taxes 4 times a year, quarterly. What's my tax? How much taxes do I need to pay this time? How much do I need to pay that like each quarter, and like calculating that. And you have to, before you even actually have to pay income tax, you hit a certain threshold with your profit. And so it's a lot to learn. And then just, when you're creating your freelance business, whether you want to do an LLC or if you want to just be a sole proprietor, making sure you have business insurance. Let me say, making sure you have a separate bank account for your business. Like you can't use personal account. You have to have one for your business. And what if you get, and this was like something that I just recently kind of found out. So one of my clients is actually paying me by check. And so they send me a check once a month for, the work that I did the month before. And the check is made out to my business. It's not made out to me. It's made out to my business because I have to send them an invoice and stuff. And so, I can't just deposit that check without having a certificate from my state and county saying like a doing business as form that I had to fill out and go down to the courthouse. They notarize it and all that stuff. I think I had to pay like $50 for it, it was not expensive at all. But it's an extra step that you have to do to be able to just cash this check that is in the name of my business.
Right.
So that was an interesting learning experience.
No, definitely. Yeah. So what has surprised you so far about going from being a teacher to becoming an instructional designer? Like, is there anything in particular that you can mention that was like a big adjustment?
I think the biggest adjustment was not being in a constant state of stress. And that's a mental health thing.
Wow.
Right? Between not being in a constant state of stress and not having to work every second of the day.
Wow.
Those were the two biggest things that took the most kind of, it was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like, I had to like take a step back and be like, oh, wait, if I don't work like 8 hours straight, that's okay. You know, I can go for a walk in the morning. Like, I don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. anymore. I can sleep in a little bit. I have deadlines, but I can manage them. It's not like, yeah.
No, that's pretty intense. Like Shahira saying, in chat, she's powerful. Yeah. But what do you miss about the teaching profession?
I miss the kids.
Yeah.
And my teacher friends. I like one of my strengths as a teacher was being able to connect with my kids. Being able to build relationships with my students. And I do miss being able to walk down the hall and talk to my teacher friend, because now I work from home, and so it's just me and my dog.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like really the only things that I miss. I don't like, I loved lesson planning. Lesson planning was fun. I still get to do that as an instructional designer, essentially. I don't miss the politics. I don't miss the paperwork. I don't miss having to grade hundreds of papers because I was an English teacher.
Yeah.
I taught theater and English. And I also created a program called the Teacher Academy, and they were for high school. It was for high school students that wanted to go into teaching. So I don't miss like all the grading and stuff, but yeah, that's two biggest things I miss: the kids and my teacher, and being able to see my teacher friends all.
Right. No, that's no, thanks for sharing that. That's really, really interesting. So why don't we go into what your daily schedule is like now? Maybe just describe that.
Yeah, my daily schedule is fun. So in the morning, after I get up, my dog and I go on a hot girl walk. I don't know if you've heard that term. It's a TikTok thing, where you walk like 2 to 4 miles and listen to motivational podcasts. And so, or like inspirational songs or something like that. So it's a little bit of movement and mindfulness. So I do that in the morning, and then
real quick, what kind of what podcast, just for folks out there?
So I'm gonna look it up real quick, because I have like a whole list of podcasts. There's the Mood podcast, We Can Do Hard Things, Real Pod, Take the Cake. Those are the ones that I've listened to so far. I've listened to episodes of so far. And Not Your Typical podcast. So those are some of the motivational ones.
Nice.
That I've been listening to. And then, after my morning walk, get ready for the day. So shower, breakfast, and then do some work. Yeah. And
what's the work usually like? Is it you just dive in, sit at a computer and go, or can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, it depends on like what the client needs at the time. So I might have a meeting, I might have some stuff to do in storyline, some content development that I need to do. I might be reviewing some stuff. I might be doing some graphic design. It just depends on what. I have 2 clients currently, and they're both long-term clients. So it just depends on what they need. But then, like, I work for a couple of hours, and then I stop and take my dog to the park across the street, and we play, and I throw the ball for her. And then if I still have some work to do, then I do a little bit more. But right now, I'm only doing, I was doing maybe 4 to 6 hours a day of work. Because over the summer, the work slowed down. Towards the winter, spring, I had 4 clients. Then 2 of the contracts ended, which is typical. And the two clients that I have, they're both long-term clients. So that slowed down a little bit, but it's picking up again.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be busy this fall.
Right.
But when the work slowed down, I wasn't scrambling. Like, I was making enough to like pay my bills and stuff. So I wasn't scrambling to find additional contracts. Because I'm also still recovering from burnout from teaching. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna continue to work on myself. When I was part of the reason I left teaching was because of anxiety and depression. So I'm gonna continue to work on that. Make sure that I'm in a good space, and then as the work picks up, then it picks up.
Nice. So, if you were talking to a teacher that is, thinking about transitioning into instructional design, are there any particular lessons that you would share, that you think would be helpful? Is there anything that you can reflect on that just to hand over some advice?
Yeah. So, I think one of the hardest things when transitioning into instructional design is kind of figuring out your starting point. What do you do first? And so what I've told other teachers that have transitioned, told them, start with like these 4 things. It might be 3. You want to build your LinkedIn profile. You want to update your resume, and you want your resume to not like it. You need to basically translate it to like corporate speak, so that it's understandable for someone who works in the corporate world. And there are a lot of like great webinars on how to do that. And then your portfolio. Those are like the three things that you need to focus on is portfolio, LinkedIn, and your resume.
Right. Okay, cool. We have 2 of those things going on next week because I know. Let's see. Ashley Chiazon is going to be talking about portfolios. There's actually a few that I think there's 3 sessions that are talking about moving from like academic to corporate. Sort of going from being a teacher and then going into business. And then Lainey Istvan in particular is going to be talking about terminology and things like that. So that'll be next week. So that's great. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I never thought about having somebody on to talk about getting your LinkedIn profile going, but maybe that's something I can do.
Yeah. Devlin Peck does have like a really good, I think he has a really good YouTube episode
on updating getting your LinkedIn,
like how to optimize your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Because I mean, with my LinkedIn profile, I've gotten messages from recruiters. I've gotten one of my current clients, they actually found me on LinkedIn and reached out to me and then was like, hey, we want to meet. We think you'd be a great fit for this contract. And
yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is great.
Yeah. And I think that's more important for the freelancers too. I know that like, if you're just somebody that's looking for work and, you just want to, looking for a job, just updating your LinkedIn once is fine. Cause I myself, I'm not like, LinkedIn stresses me out. I just get stressed when I go to LinkedIn. I don't know. I think it's just there's like 90% of it is a lot of like noise to me, and so I just can't keep up with it. So I start to get anxiety. But
that's fair.
But I know that if you're a freelancer, I know the better freelancers out there just maintain a good story, right? So that, you know. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, have you connected with Kara North at all?
I follow her on LinkedIn.
Okay. And we got to connect you too, because she's from Kentucky. You know, nice. she went to the Ohio State University. So nice. I'm like, well, you guys are the similarity. She's going to be speaking next week too. So
yeah, I saw. She does a great thing. I can't remember if she does it just once a week or daily, because I'm not as active on LinkedIn as I probably should be. But you know, everything's like updated and it looks good. My profile looks good. But she does a great thing where she researches and then posts jobs that she thinks are good.
Oh yeah, the instructional design job thing. Yeah. She does so that. That's awesome.
That's cool.
I just want to mention Bridget is saying that Jennifer Brick offers great LinkedIn advice as well on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
So something to take a look at. That's
great. Absolutely.
So what are your future plans? What's it look like for you coming up? Anything, you know, like any goals that you've set or anything?
So something that I want to do that I haven't even started on yet. But I do want to have a YouTube channel that gives freelance advice for instructional designers. Mm-hmm. Kind of like really, each episode, like kind of just goes over what I've learned as a freelancer when it comes to the business side.
Yeah.
Of it. You know,
that's
there are
awesome.
Tons and tons of resources out there about the L&D side. And it's not just necessarily like freelance related. Mm-hmm. So there are like tons of videos out there about like adding and, you know, the different theories and stuff like that. And storyline and how to use the different tools. And, but I didn't see a lot, and that's why I reached out to you about the freelance conference. Mm-hmm. I didn't see much about the business side of L&D.
Right.
And anytime that someone goes over the business side of L&D, it's kind of glossed over. They don't really get into like the nitty-gritty of running a freelance business and everything that you need to do to be legally set up as a business owner.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of resources for that. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
And I think LD Lance does some stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's coming down the pipeline.
Right. No, awesome. I look forward to you being a YouTube star. So we'll see you at some point then. All right. Well, Stephanie, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I just want to remind everybody, next week, Transitioning to Learning Development. It's a whole week full of sessions. If you go to www.t2ld.com, you'll see the schedule on that page. It's free. I don't know. Last I checked, I think we had like close to 400 people registered. So it should be a pretty,
that's amazing.
Yeah, pretty busy one. And the schedule is almost complete. I'm just missing a couple things from different people. I think I have a panel yet to book, but it's for the whole week, like 2 or 3 sessions each day. Plus we're going to have virtual tables. Should be fun. So please join us if you can. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and just close this one out. Stephanie, thank you so much again for joining me on a broadcast. And we'll see you next week at the event.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks, everybody. All right, bye-bye.